Well, Richard and I, on December 2nd of 2018, we lost our 24-year-old son, Adam, to suicide. I am a clinical social worker and currently am a high school counselor. And so in my work, I've worked with kids that have been suicidal for, I got my master's in 96. So I've been doing it for a while. And that evening, it was a Sunday evening, it was 6:59. Abby was married and living in Topeka. She's our oldest daughter. Our Adam was our second child. Allie would have been about 20. She was a college student. She was living here at home to save money, and she was out getting yogurt with some friends across town. And our youngest son, Anthony, who was a senior in high school, was upstairs in his bedroom, probably playing a video game or something. And we got a text. And immediately, as soon as I started reading the text, within the first line, I knew it was his goodbye suicide text. Anthony comes running down the stairs. Richard and I, he grabbed his keys. We all ran out. I immediately start calling Adam, trying to reach him. Anthony is on the phone calling 911 for us. And Richard's trying to drive without running red lights or getting us into a car accident. Adam he had a house and he only lived about 5 minutes away from us. I think we made it there in about 3.5 minutes. And as soon as we got there, in his note, he was very gracious and, told us what a great family we were, that he was just tired of living with the pain and it was his time to end it. He gave us the passcode to his phone. He had told us to take care of his dog, and he told us where we could find his body. And as he didn't want us to go down there, he wanted us to just call the police. And of course, as parents, Richard ends up breaking into the house so we could get down there to save him. And unfortunately, we weren't able to save him. Anthony was standing outside with the dog, taking care of the dog because the dog was upstairs. Allie gets the text across town at the yogurt place and calls us, and I think she ended up meeting us back at home. And of course, Abby is a sheriff's deputy, and she was actually on a call that night for an elderly man who had passed away at home with his wife. And Derek is a firefighter, and at the time they had a 3-month-old baby. And I think he was at home with the baby, but within an hour, everybody was at our house. And that's, when the journey that has changed our life forever began.
We got there as quick as we could, but
he had used
feeling it was too late.
He used a gun. This wasn't his first suicide attempt. As a matter of fact, in October, I took him out for coffee because I was concerned that he was starting to show signs of depression again, and took him out for coffee, had a talk with him. He assured me everything was fine. And I just reminded him that we were here for him, and we could, we would do whatever we could to help him. I'm trying to remember, there was a time when he was in college. No, it was a year after. He went to KU. He got into the engineering school, and but he didn't like being inside and being stuck on a computer and everything. He wanted something else, so he quit school to figure out what he wanted to do. And there was a time when he was living in an apartment, and his girlfriend called me it was in August. It was the first week of school. She called me at work and said, "Adam just gave me a bunch of his belongings. I'm concerned." And it was like, okay, that's a big warning sign. I was clear across town, so I called Richard, who was a little bit closer than me, and he got there first. And Adam was suicidal. He had a plan to kill himself with a knife, and we stayed with him for a long time that day. He was roommates with his cousin at the time, and when he finally we felt like maybe he was a little safe. He felt like he was safe. The cousin was made aware. We came home. We had, at that time, Anthony, our youngest, was still in elementary school, and we had a function for him that night. So we went to that. We drove by Dairy Queen on the way home and said, let's get Adam ice cream and take it to him. And that was our excuse to stop in and check in on him. and he seemed to be doing fine. But about 2 hours later, he came to the house and he said, "Can I stay here with you guys tonight? I don't know if I can stay safe." He said yes, and I talked to him about counseling and everything, and he didn't think counseling would help him at that moment. So I said, "Well, let's go to the doctor tomorrow and check and talk to him." And so we went to his GP, and they were fabulous. They talked to him about the importance of counseling, about medications, that kind of thing. And he tried, and it didn't work fast enough for him. So he gave up on that. I do think he self-medicated with alcohol. It'll be 3 years, December 2nd. And today, he had a house, and in January, after he passed away, January of 2019, I couldn't bring myself to do it, but Richard went over and boxed everything up and brought it over and put it in our garage. And just today, this weekend, we said we were going to go through some of those boxes, and it was the first time, and there were tears, but we were able to go through, and I mean, bless his heart, he packed everything up. We threw away deodorant and toothpaste and things like that today. But we came across the notebook, and on the outside of the notebook, it said, "Don't forget, I love you all forever." And I opened it up, and the first thing was a letter to Mom and Dad. "Mom and Dad, you guys were the best parents." And he just went through and said, "I can't live with this pain anymore." And then he wrote a letter to his sister Abby, to his sister Allie, to his brother Anthony, and to his high school girlfriend. So that's what told me this wasn't, these letters weren't for this suicide attempt. These letters were from a suicide attempt when he was in high school. Or college, not high school, I guess, because Abby was
a teacher.
Yeah, it was, by the timeline for some of the things he said to Abby, he was out of school. But he was still dating his high school sweetheart at the time. But there was a time where he had a car accident late at night, and he called us, and we went out and we picked him up, and he had rolled his truck down a ravine south of Clinton Lake. And I asked him that night if he was suicidal and if it was a suicide attempt, and he said no. And the sheriff that worked the accident asked him, and he said no. Years later, he told us that was a suicide attempt. So we knew of a couple of different suicide attempts before this one. And he in this letter, he talked about how he would hope that he felt like he was weak, and that he could, if he drank enough alcohol, he might poison himself, or he might run his truck into a pole and kill himself. So he'd been thinking about it and trying it for quite a while. He just didn't believe, he didn't have hope. He didn't believe that there was any way of helping him. We also, after his death, we went back through, because he was a wrestler in junior high and high school. He was just a very athletic young man, liked to do lots of things that were kind of on the dangerous side. And I always kind of wondered afterwards if that was him trying to kill himself by accident, so to speak. But we counted 7 different concussions that he had. And I know from my work that one concussion can increase the likelihood of depression by 50%. And so in 24 years, he had 7 concussions that we're aware of. And he had one I think it was in October, that he had the last one that we were aware of. And he made a comment to me the weekend of Thanksgiving that he probably hadn't really healed from that one yet, because sounds and his work and stuff still bothered his head. And so I think that his head did hurt. And I wish, in hindsight, I wish we would have known how much he was hurting. So we, could have done some exploration on the concussion side of it, as well as gotten him more help for the depression. Tried to help him find hope. And yeah.
Sorry, I'm not saying much.
I wish he were here, but I'm glad he's not suffering. And reading that and knowing that for at least the last 3 years of his life, maybe longer. He really was suffering enough to think about death on a enough regular basis that he tried several times and that he had written this out. When Robin Williams died, everybody was so surprised because, you know, he made everybody laugh and he always had a smile on his face. And that was our Adam. At his funeral, every picture we found of the man, he was smiling and he had a great smile. And he, you know, that's what everybody said. He was always so happy. He was so nice and polite to everybody. When people talk about suicide being selfish, these are not words from a selfish young man. He left us with words that comforted us to know that in his mind, there wasn't anything we could do. And that's one of the reasons why we're speaking out, is we want parents and family and friends to know somebody can be smiling all the time and happy and still be struggling. It's kind of that, well, if you see something, say something, because people can be really good at hiding that depression and those suicidal thoughts until they can't anymore. And then it can be too late. And we don't blame any of them. We're not blaming anybody. Yeah.
Get it out there. So.
But I just want people to be aware. See something concerning, you hear something, say something to somebody. Call their parents, call their friends, call their wife or husband, girlfriends or boyfriends. Reach out, talk to them, offer to get them help, give them the suicide prevention number. I mean, there's so much help out there. And
no way do we hold them accountable though. But people just don't want to talk about it. No, that's it. Just people got to be willing to talk about it. You know, you see it all the time in the obituaries. And I probably look at it because I'm from Lawrence, so I look for friends and stuff like that. But when you see a young person and they don't, you know, they just said their life ended at home, or it just seems like they try to hide it. Nobody wants to put it out there. We intended to put it out there a little more than what we did, but you get caught up in things, and that's why we're doing this. Hopefully, get it where, you know, people talk about it. Try to understand it a little bit. It's not something that should be talked about. It's not something that should be hidden. Hopefully, that's why I'm doing this, to help somebody else.